Welcome to the deep dive. Here we take the sources you share. Could be research, articles, sometimes, like today, a whole stack of official documents, and we really pull out the crucial bits for you.
Exactly. The idea is to go beyond just being informed, right? To really get what matters fast.
And today, we're focusing on one company,
Mhm.
Shade of ProCare, Private Limited. We're using their actual official filings as our roadmap.
Yeah, we've got their Articles of Association from the start. That's like their founding constitution, plus a bunch of regulatory forms filed over time.
So our mission, for you listening, is to get a quick but solid handle on how this company was set up initially and, maybe more importantly, how it's changed, based purely on these records.
Okay, let's dive in. Formation. Shade of ProCare, Private Limited. They officially kicked things off October 28th, 2013.
Right, so not just an idea, but registered official, under the Companies Act No. 7 of 2007.
Correct. And their first registered office, their initial base, was No. 40B, Kahati, Pilamathalawa.
Pilmbalawa. Got it. So who are the people involved right at the beginning?
The filings show three initial directors, Hangiri Gadara Manjula Ranasinghe, Moragal Jedij Agnes Gairathna, and Hiwa Sundaraj Lakshmi Wijanayaka.
Okay.
And interestingly, Hiwa Sundaraj Lakshmi Wijanayaka also served as the first company secretary.
So doing double duty there at the start, these were the founders steering the ship. Now, what was the ship meant to do initially? What business was outlined in those first articles?
Well, the primary objects were very much focused on the dairy industry.
Dairy, like milk and cheese.
Yeah, exactly. Manufacturing, distributing dairy products, also import and export both the products themselves and machinery needed for it.
Okay.
Plus operating milk collecting centers and even offering like private training and consultancy within the dairy sector.
So quite specific, all centered around dairy.
Yeah.
What about the money side, the initial ownership structure?
It was pretty modest, actually. The initial share capital was just 3 ordinary shares.
3, that's it.
Yep, just 3 shares at ours is 30 each. And they were split evenly, 1 share for each of those initial directors, Ranasinghe, Dairathna, and Wijanayaka.
Wow, okay. So a very lean startup capital, firmly in the dairy world. Now, let's move forward a bit. Looking at the filings up to, say, 2018, what were the first significant changes we see?
The first main shifts involved people and location. By August 5th, 2018, we see a new secretary had come in,
Oh, who was that?
Marasinghe Patharanaj Sunil. He replaced Lakshmi Wijanayaka as secretary, though it's worth noting Wijanayaka stayed on as a director at that point.
Interesting. So a change in the administrative lead, but not a complete exit for one of the founders from the board. Was that the only personnel change around then?
No, actually, there was quite a bit of movement on the board itself around July 2018.
Okay.
So Sunil, the new secretary, he was also appointed as a director on July 10th, 2018.
So taking on a director role too.
Right, and on the very same day, Rathnayaka Arakaga Udara Sampath Kumara was also appointed as a director.
So 2 new faces on the board.
Exactly, and at the same time, 2 of the original directors resigned their directorships.
Which ones?
Moragal Jedij Agnes Dairathna and Hiwasundorj Lakshmi Wijanayaka. They both stepped down as directors on July 10th.
So Lakshmi Wijanayaka was out as secretary and director by then.
Well, replaced the secretary earlier and then resigned as director on July 10th. Yes, so quite a shakeup.
Definitely a significant reshuffle at the top. 2 founders leaving directorship, 2 new people coming in. And you mentioned location change too.
Yes, shortly after those board changes, on August 2nd, 2018, the company moved its registered office.
Number 2.
From that initial spot in Pilimapalawa, they moved to NUM 3901 Mbagahamula Junction, Nilpengoda, Minuwangoda.
Okay, so a completely different area, Minuwangoda. By 2018 then? New secretary, partly new board, new address. What about the next phase, say 2019 through 2023? Did the evolution continue?
Oh, yes. This period shows some even more fundamental changes. We see international involvement creeping in and a really big shift in what the company actually does.
International. How so?
Around March 2020, the filings show Seo Young-suk, who's noted as a South Korean national, was appointed as a director.
Interesting. Bringing in foreign expertise or connections, perhaps. And the shift in what they do, you said it was big.
Massive. On January 20th, 2021, they passed a special resolution. Now remember, a special resolution isn't trivial. It's for major company decisions.
Right, needs significant shareholder agreement.
Exactly. And this resolution, it added a whole slew of new primary business objectives. We're talking building construction, road development, water and sewerage projects.
Wait, construction? From dairy?
Yep. Irrigation, marine construction, land reclamation, large-scale building projects, supplying construction materials. It's a completely different field.
Wow. That's not just diversification. That's like a whole new company identity almost.
Yeah.
What could possibly drive such a dramatic change?
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Maybe they saw huge opportunities in construction, maybe the dairy market wasn't performing, or perhaps it was related to the new leadership or investment profile. It's a significant pivot.
Definitely. Any other new objectives in that resolution?
Yeah, they also added providing training and market opportunities for self-employment in Sri Lanka and facilitating online jobs for Sri Lankans.
So construction and employment services, they really broaden their horizons.
Hugely. From milk to motorways and online work, essentially.
Quite the journey. Did the address change again during this time?
It did, but more recently, there was a notice filed January 5th, 2024, making a move effective January 12th, 2024.
And where did they move this time?
Back towards the original area, actually. 529 Colombo Road, Pilamatalawa, postcode 20450.
Back to Pilamatalawa. That's interesting. Maybe reconnecting with roots, or perhaps just where the new leadership is based.
Could be either, yeah. It's another point of change.
Speaking of leadership, the most recent filings you mentioned point to a lot of activity right at the end of 2023. What happened then?
December 2023 looks like a real whirlwind, personnel-wise. On December 17th, 3 directors resigned all at once.
3?
Marasinga Patharanaj Sunil, Rathnayaka Rabachika Udara Sampath Kumara, and the foreign director, Seo Young Seok. All resigned as directors on that date.
Wow.
And Sunil also resigned as secretary on the same day. So a major clearing out of the leadership team that had been in place for a few years.
That's a huge simultaneous exit. What does that usually signal? Disagreement. A sale.
Hard to say definitively from just the forms, right? Could be a strategic overhaul, could be personal decisions, maybe a coordinated move before something else happened, but it certainly signals major change.
So who stepped into that vacuum?
Well, initially, on that same day, December 17th, Rajapaksa Mudyansalaj Indika Kumar Rajapaksa was appointed, took on both roles, director and secretary.
Okay, so one person replacing the 3 outgoing directors and the secretary.
Temporarily, it seems. Because that appointment didn't last long.
Oh.
Just 9 days later, on December 26, 2023, Rajapaksa resigned from both positions.
9 days. That's incredibly short. What happened then?
On the same day, December 26th, Sirimal Darulaj Sandhya was appointed as both director and secretary.
Okay, so a very rapid handover. Appointed, resigned, new person appointed, all within about 9 days. That definitely raises questions about what was going on internally.
Absolutely. Suggests maybe some instability or quick decision-making right then.
Now, through all these changes, the business shift, the location moves, these recent leadership musical chairs, what about the original director, Hangidi Jidara Majula Rana Singh? Were they still around?
It certainly appears so. The actual forms submitted to register these recent changes, the Form 20s dated March 26, 2024, and another one July 11th, 2024, they both list Hangidi Jidara Manjula Rana Singh as the person presenting the form.
Ah, so still actively involved in the company's official filings, even this year.
Yeah, it strongly suggests a continuous presence, perhaps even a guiding hand, despite all the other changes happening around them.
A constant figure. Okay, one last crucial piece. The ownership, the shares. We started with that simple 3-way split. Did that ever change?
This is where it gets particularly interesting and requires looking closely. Most of the standard annual returns we have seem to just list those initial 3 shares.
Right, the Rs 30 total.
But remember that special resolution from January 2021, the one that brought in all the construction and employment objectives?
Yes.
Well, that specific document included a statement about the shareholding needed to pass the resolution. It stated that, for that purpose, Marsinga Pathranaj Sunil held 67% of the shares.
67%.
Yep. And Rathnayaka Arakshige Udara Sampath Kumara held the remaining 33%.
Whoa. Okay, so that's completely different from the initial 3 equal shares. That means somewhere between 2013 and January 2021, the ownership structure must have fundamentally changed.
Precisely. Even if the regular annual returns didn't capture the detail, this special resolution makes it clear. Sunil and Kumara, the directors appointed in 2018, had acquired all the shares by early 2021, with Sunil holding a clear majority.
That's a key insight. It shows how ownership can shift, maybe through private transfers, and it might only become visible in specific filings like a special resolution, not necessarily every single annual update.
Exactly. The how and when of that transfer aren't fully detailed in these specific documents, but the fact of the transfer and the resulting structure in 2021 is evident from that resolution.
Okay, let's try and sum up this journey for Shade of ProCare. It starts, quite straightforwardly. Dairy focus, Pilamethalawa base, 3 equal founders.
Then comes change, leadership shifts, a move to Minuangoda, then a really dramatic pivot into construction and employment services, adding an international director.
Followed by another location shift back towards Pilamethalawa, and then this very recent, very rapid turnover in the top leadership positions at the end of 2023.
And underlying some of that, the evidence of a major shift in share ownership sometime before 2021, consolidating control with the directors who came in around 2018.
So for you listening, what are the key takeaways here?
Well, first, I'd say the company's remarkable, maybe even surprising, ability to completely change its core business. That level of strategic shift is significant.
Right.
And second, the sheer frequency of director and secretary changes recently, late 2023 especially, it points towards a period of potentially significant transition or decision-making.
And thirdly,
The shareholding aspect, how it seems to have changed quite dramatically from the initial setup and how we spotted that through a specific resolution, not just the routine filings. It highlights you need to look at all the documents sometimes.
so the final thought for you to chew on. Considering this evolution, the big business pivot, the geographical back and forth, the recent leadership frenzy, and that earlier ownership consolidation, what could be the real story, the current strategy of Shea to ProCare. If you wanted to understand this latest transformation, what other documents, what other clues might you look for next?
Something to ponder. That wraps up this deep dive.
Thanks for tuning in.